All right, fighter, check it out. As you can see, I'm with my buddy Micah Miller. What's up, Home Slice?
Loving it.
You're loving it. What are you loving, man?
Life.
Life?
So good.
I appreciate you making the trip, man. I know you had a lot
Absolutely.
going on this
So
week.
dry out here, man.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah. He's an East Coaster.
Yeah.
So tell people where you're at. What do you do, real quick?
Yes,
And,
so-
and real quick, hold on. If you go back to episode 359
That's right.
of the Contractor Fight podcast, you can hear all of Micah's story, how he was broke as fuck.
And that's 21. So
In
I'm a
2020.
wildly different
Yeah.
person in 24 than I was in 21.
And so, for time's sake and to keep this manageable for you guys, go back and listen to that to get the full context of where he's coming from.
Yep.
But who are you, where you live, what do you do, all that good shit.
Yeah, so I live in coastal Virginia. The name of the town that I live in is Poquoson. Most people don't know how to say it. Most people say Poquoson, but it means low-lying marsh in Indian, and that is exactly what it is. It's a low-lying marsh area, but I love it. It's an old fisherman village. I run a landscape construction business, so we specialize in water features, hardscape patios, outdoor kitchens, and lighting. And my journey started actually in the lawn care arena. When I was just in high school, I was 12. I started cutting grass.
Wait, you were 12 in high school?
Well, right before high school. I mean, like,
Fucking.
whatever. It got serious in high school.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Yeah, but I started cutting grass when I was 12 and then got serious through high school. I had a bunch of guys from church helping me cut grass. And then decided to get married, and the business kind of blossomed from there because I needed to support my wife.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was kind of like this 5 years truck in a truck phase.
Uh-huh.
And then I had a really good mentor, and the business exploded.
Right.
We got huge. We went from 150,000 to 1.8 million, but I did it all wrong
Yeah.
and ended up
Yeah.
with a crazy amount of debt. And I had to restructure the business. And that's where this focus on a client experience actually came out of my insecurity that I was failing my clients, is how it actually started.
Guys, Mike is also one of our fight coaches and helps so many people each week,
Yeah.
each day.
Love marketing.
Win at a higher level. Have you ever considered that this is why people hate you? Check this out. If the material costs you $300, charge $300 for the materials. Adding a 10% markup is reasonable. Adding a 100% markup is not. That's a comment that I got on one of our videos here on Contractor Fight TV, and where I was doing teaching about
You're a terrible person, Tom.
the importance of having a high gross profit. Basically, if it costs you $1, charge $2.
Yep.
And then all the brilliant business minds of YouTube decided to weigh in on this, and
I love it.
That's kind of the consensus.
I'm glad they're
is
weighing
that
in.
if you're doubling the cost of what it costs you to produce the job, you're basically ripping people off. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. That guy has some real knowledge.
That's why people hate us
That's
as
why people hate
contractors,
us,
right? Yeah, because if it costs you $300 to buy the bricks, you
Yeah.
should just charge $300 for the bricks, right?
Let's peel this onion
Yeah,
back a
so-
little bit, because contractors do have a bad name. They do have a bad rap in the industry, and it's this interesting. It's a catch-22. I see a lot of guys who think that they can charge more. This is from the contractor side, so now I'm looking at it from the other perspective. They think that they deserve more. And I had this argument with my electrician the other day because he's starting to raise his rates, which I have no problem with him raising his rates. Absolutely, perfectly fine. But there's this concept where $500 client, hey, I just want to make sure that we're a good fit, that we get along, want to make sure that our values are aligned, and that your company hires fair trade employees, whatever.
Yeah.
$50,000 client, right? Check, sent, thanks.
Yeah, get it done.
Get it done.
Yeah.
But what most contractors think is that they can go work for that person, that $50,000 client. They
Yeah.
think that they're capable of producing a job for that $50,000 client. And actually, most contractors aren't.
Why is that? What's your take?
Right. So this is peeling back the onion
Yeah.
just a little bit. I believe there's a lot that goes into being able to deliver a job so effortlessly to the client that they just feel like I'm willing to send this $50,000. And most contractors have head trash.
Yep.
They have issues with communicating on time. They have issues with getting their teammates on time and looking not disheveled. They have issues picking up trash on job sites. So the $50,000 client isn't for you yet, right? It's not for them.
You haven't
yet.
earned the right.
You haven't earned the right to get that money sent. Thanks. Instead, because you are fucking up all the time, you deserve the $500 client.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is when the guy who doesn't have his shit together is bidding the $50,000 client,
Yep.
right? And then they don't get the job. They're like, oh, they were cheap, and they make all these excuses when the real issue was you don't have your shit together and you haven't built enough trust.
Yep.
And from the very first time they ever saw your brand
Yep.
to how you answered the phone and communicate and you know how you pulled up, how you present yourself.
Yeah.
Did you have bedhead when you showed up? Brush your fucking teeth, for God's sake.
Do you have deodorant on?
Right. Like seriously, I've had contractors come to me and shit with Simplify Painting when I'm interviewing subcontractors. I'll have guys show up and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm like, I would never put you in somebody's home. I wouldn't put you in an empty fucking warehouse to paint it.
Right.
You know, because how you do one thing's how you do everything.
And I don't believe that we can just arrive at being the contractor that the $50,000 client wants. I don't believe that we just arrive at that. I believe that there is a struggle, there is a turmoil that we have to go through, and it's all about refining us as part of going through that journey. It's about us knowing who we are and what we can deliver to our clients.
Yeah.
And this is the conversation I was having with my electrician, and he's raising his rates, and you're not showing up on time. He's not even sending me an invoice on time. And I pay him.
Right.
I tell him I pay you in 24 hours of receiving an invoice. I pay it right away. And he's not even taking the time to send it. He sends it like 3 months later. I've already closed out the job. If there's an overage, I can't go back to the client and ask for it. So I end up eating it.
Yeah.
And he keeps raising his rates because I have to get to this 50% gross profit margin.
Right.
That guy leaving that comment,
Yeah.
he's probably the guy who doesn't show up on time. He's probably the guy that doesn't answer his phone calls. He then goes through this, he bids, he gets all the work done, and then he goes back and he bids, and then he goes and gets all the work done.
Right.
So his lead flow looks like this, you know, and he's literally like, bank account's low, I need to go sell something.
Yeah.
There's no discipline. There's no, this is what I need to do today. So they can hate all they want.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't bother the guys that are doing it the right way.
So for those that read that comment, all right, basically this is why people hate you. If it costs you $300, you should charge $300.
Yeah.
Okay. Adding 10%, which would be $30.
I think McDonald's charges $1 for
So-
a dollar produced thing.
So for those that might be confused on this, okay, like let's talk about where that money goes.
I would love
right?
to.
Okay, so if I sell a project,
Yep.
we'll just use this case, just whatever the labor
Make it
is.
$1,000.
Make it
We
a
have a round
$1,000
number.
job, right?
Yep.
All right. If it cost me $1,000
Yep.
to produce this job, it's what I'm going to pay my person on site for the day or whatever it is,
Yep.
plus the $300 in materials or $200
Yeah.
in materials. We double it. It's $1,000 in direct costs,
Yep.
right? We double it. We sell it at $2,000. People look at that and they go, "That's 100% markup."
Yep.
You're making
It seems
$1,000. You're making $1,000 of profit on something that cost you $1,000.
Yep.
Not reality.
Let's go granular on
Yeah.
this. I would like to break
Where's
this
the
down
money go?
a
Where's
little
that other
bit. Yes,
$1,000 go?
Well, let's start with the first $1,000 because I would like to actually start with what goes above and inside of the gross profit margin. I'm
Right.
not trying to scare everybody and using that cost of goods, gross profit margin, everything that it costs to produce the job to make it show up at your client's house.
Right.
So we're going to talk about it. This doesn't include trucks. This doesn't include insurance. We're not even going to talk about that at this point. We're going to talk about the $300 in materials, probably the $500 in direct labor costs,
Right.
right? And then you had to rent a machine. We're just making this up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that all makes $1,000 to produce that job. We
Yeah.
haven't talked about anything outside of actually being on that job site.
Right.
There's no fuel costs. There's no nothing. There's no insurance. It's just $1,000 right there. So, right, we understand that there's that $1,000. Okay, so if we doubled the $300 in materials, we only made $300 of profit on this job. So that's still not going to be enough. So we
Right.
put all these costs together and we doubled it and we ended up with $2,000 for this job. All right, so let's go to what's below the line now.
Yeah.
So what's below the line is owner's salary.
Yep.
And everybody thinks that we're getting super rich off of this.
Yeah, they think you're putting that $1,000 in your pocket.
That's right.
And you're not.
It's fantastic when we
Yeah.
start to break this down even more.
Yep.
Right? So you have workers' comp. You have
Liability.
liability insurance.
Yep.
You've got truck insurance. You've got the fuel that got you to that job, because that doesn't go into the cost
have
of
your
that
cell
job.
phone bill.
You have that cell phone.
You have your website domain,
The marketing,
your marketing
costs,
expenses.
which people don't realize most of the time. I mean, as contractors, we realize this, but most of the time people are getting leads off of Angie and paying almost $100 for them, right? So there's that $100 doesn't necessarily go into the cost of the job. That goes into the cost of your marketing,
Right.
right? So you start to break it down. At the end of the day, this $2,000 job, the average profit for small contracting businesses is something like 8.8% in the United States.
All right, so let's do the math on that.
8.8%.
$2,000 sale price times 0.088, right?
Yep.
$176
Right.
net profit
Net profit.
is, and that's an 8.9%, right?
I firmly believe,
Yeah.
and statistics, this is off of Forbes. If you break down the Forbes statistics, the average small business owner only makes $10,000 more than their similar person working for somebody.
Than an employee.
Than an employee, a social economic.
But they also get the
even.
benefit of all the weight of carrying the load
They-
of the business and the
Oh,
sleepless
that's benefit.
nights.
That's
and,
right.
And,
It's
and you know,
fantastic.
but they can call their own shots, right? So,
Yeah.
but all the pressure of getting the phone to ring and closing the deals, where the employee who's only making 10 grand less than the average business owner, he's sleeping like a fucking baby most nights.
He loves it.
Because he can shut it off at night.
Yeah.
So yeah. So really, you know, and I know. I mean, you're doing north of 5 million in your business. You've had quite the journey that, you know, we've talked about on the show before. You've been coaching people in the fight for a while, helping a lot of people. You have to get that net profit up. Because the other thing that comment made me think of, I'm like, a lot of people are like, they're pissed at contractors because they don't honor the warranty work. They don't come back when there's a callback.
Yeah.
They don't communicate well. It's like a revolving door of employees, and it's chaos all the time. And I believe the root of that, one of the roots, I believe the root of it is the fucking personal discipline of the contractor.
Yeah.
But I think like the tactical root of this is you're not charging enough. Right? And so you don't have enough profit. All the profit does not go into your pockets to buy a fucking boat. Like it's to run the business and invest in the people and to, you know, send people out to do like I said, warranty work and fix shit and you know, plus ones for your clients and make it a better experience in these things. So
it's not understanding what a job takes to produce. And if we don't look at our P&Ls and understand what they're saying, then we should go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
It's literally that simple.
I mean, dude, just take this this simple little. I'll use Simplify Painting, my painting company here in Colorado Springs. For those that don't know, it's a side hustle. I started it about
Side hustle.
3.5 months ago. I spent a few hours a week on the thing. It's a side hustle.
Yeah.
It's like it's not my main gig, and so like let's just pick a number. If I want to go 15 grand a month is my overhead, right?
Yep.
And
Which is low.
Which is low, but I'm brand new. We're done 150 grand at a 60% gross profit in our first 3 months, right?
Yeah.
So 15 grand a month, just for an easy number. If you divide that by 20 working days in a month,
Yep.
that's $750 a day I have to add on to whatever the direct job costs are for me to recover my overhead. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is, and I love the guys that are like, I don't have any overhead.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Okay.
you know, and there are some out there that I would say, you know, everyone has overhead, but I would say most contractors don't have enough overhead because they don't spend enough on marketing and training, investing in their people,
Yep.
you know, and all the things that are going to elevate the brand
Yeah.
and get the cash register to ring.
Yeah, so I have this idea that most businesses less than $1 million, the owner of the business should still be working on the tools. What do you think about that?
It depends.
It depends, right?
I think it's
All right, so
depends.
let's take we'll work through a couple different scenarios.
Yeah.
But let's take a landscape contractor.
Yeah.
Should he be in the field at $1 million?
My take is no.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a HVAC guy. Should he be in the field at $1 million?
No.
Okay. Let's take an electrician.
No.
Okay. Painter.
Hell no.
Yeah, because $1 million is like
Well, in
that's like
painting,
$2 million
yeah,
in
like
painting.
landscaping. You know, this was funny. I did with one of our client or the pond guys in our group many years ago,
Yeah.
a lot of water feature guys, their average revenue per field employee is generally around $350,000. And the average painting company, painting contractor, the average revenue per employee is 100 to 150, depending on
Yeah.
the skills of the dude, right? Selling. So, just quick math, you want to do $1 million as a painter, you're probably running 7 to 10 guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you want to do $1 million in the landscape
That's
space.
3 people.
It's 3 people, because the other thing is your cost of materials percentage of revenue is way higher than the average painter. The average painter is like 14, 18%
Yeah.
materials. So you do $1 million in painting, you're spending 150 to 180 grand in material, and the rest is all labor cost.
Yeah.
So very different machines.
Yeah.
But I would also say, to answer your question on all these, I think it depends on the goals of the owner of the company.
That's right.
Do you like working in the field? Do you want to be on the tools? Because I coached a guy years ago, did $4 million a year. He was a painter. He hated sales. He hated project management.
Yep.
But he just happened to start this painting company. Dude, they were doing $4 million. He hired a couple salespeople, hired an office manager. He showed up once a week for an owner's meeting,
Yep.
or the company meeting where so he took a portion of owner's salary, and then he paid himself as a painter, and he worked basically full time in the field. He wasn't even a crew leader
Because that's what he wanted.
because he just wanted to put his earbuds in and paint, and he owned the business, and that was success to him.
Right.
So he chose to work in the field.
Yeah. So I think when I ask that question, what I'm really trying to boil down is there's this idea inside of the contracting world that we need to take the tool belt off in order to be successful. That we have to get out of the field in order to be successful.
Right.
And I want to fight against that.
Yeah.
I want to say it's absolutely okay, because honestly, my journey in learning how to run a $5 million business has been tumultuous. It is so difficult. And there are times where most people would have failed. And it's so difficult to get to that point. And most of us actually don't have the ability to run a business like that.
Right.
I'm thankful to have amazing mentors and teachers who are coaching me, and a safety net.
Right.
And that's why I'm able to get there. But I didn't set out to go to build a big business. It kind of is one of those things where it just ended up happening. And guess what? I'm trying to get back into actually doing the work.
Right.
Not
Right.
I like to do the marketing work, but I don't want to run the business.
Isn't
right?
it nice every now and then, like when you're the owner, and then you just have a day now and then where you just put the tools back on, and you just kind of
fantastic.
You're one of the guys again. Like
Yeah.
I love that. Like that.
So,
yeah.
Like I want to break down that notion that we need to keep hiring, we need to bring people into the business, and we need to like grow this business to be monstrous in order for us to actually make enough to survive.
Right.
Which goes back to our very first comment, which is if we understand how much it costs for us to produce a job and how much we need to make, we can then start dictating what our life needs to be. We can be proactive about it. We can be specific about what our goals are. And typically what I would say that looks like for a small business under $1 million, that typically looks like probably the business owner still in the field, but he has a kick-ass office admin.
Right.
And
Yep.
he's okay being in the field because all the things that he sucks at, all the paperwork,
Yeah.
all of the things that need to happen, all the returning the phone calls right away. If he has staff that just take care of that stuff, unless he's really good at it.
Right.
But if he has staff that just takes care of that, and then
Yeah.
he can go be the front, the face, the salesman, you make the work happen. Under $1 million, that's a very doable thing. And that's a good life. That's probably $250.
Yeah.
That's probably $250 a year. I mean, that's a very comfortable salary. Most bad things go away around that salary.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
you're able to buy new cars. You're able to have a comfortable house.
Yeah. You can invest a little money.
You can invest a little bit of money.
Yep.
Build up your kids. Yeah, so I think we need to, like, a business doesn't have to be huge for us to be successful.
Yeah.
Like, what's the reality of us actually getting to a super yacht amount of income? Like, that wasn't the goal when we started our contracting businesses.
Well, what is it like? It always hovers like little under 10% of the number of businesses that actually hit $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Right.
It's yeah.
And dude, there's another stat I heard the other. I'm gonna fucking butcher it here. But out of all the small businesses in the United States, like the millions of them, 70% are one owner, one person businesses. Think about that for a minute.
Interesting.
So if you see 10 contractors, 7 out of those 10 are a one person business. Okay. Now again, some of it, I'm not ripping on it. Like if you want to work in the, like if you enjoy the thing you're doing,
Yeah.
then, you know, where you come in is, or what you just shared is like, hey, you want to work in the field, you want to be a handyman, which I'd never fucking do in a million years. But anyway, but you can totally make a kick-ass living. You can outsource that admin stuff.
That's right.
You can even hire a sales company if you wanted to, or outsource
Yeah.
sales, part-time salesperson to help you out or whatever. Like we get to choose the success that we want, and that's why I know we talk about this a lot. Like, get fucking clear on exactly what you want. What do you want your
Right.
life to look like? How do you want to spend your time, right? And the reality is, you're not charging enough money. 99% of you are not charging enough money because you're caving. And this is a segue to my next little topic here before we wrap this up today. So we got to get him to the airport. So you're not charging enough money. You try to raise your prices, okay? You get some pushback.
Yep.
And so I had a thing the other day where I was talking about how selling is a skill,
Yep.
right? You know, where I said contractors need to stop thinking that they could just show up, spit out a price, and people are just going to eat out of your hand, right? And they're
COVID's over.
yeah, COVID's over, yeah. And some of the comments I got were interesting, and one guy in particular, he said, "My philosophy is here's my price, take it or leave it." That's his sales process. And you know a lot of guys that are like that. And
Yeah.
they're in, what's funny is they're usually the one-man show who's in their 40s, 50s, or older.
Yep.
This is who I see. And I'm 55, and I'm calling it like I see it. It's usually the guys that are older, the guys that say, I just rely on word of mouth.
Yep.
They have to work in their
Yep.
50s and 60s.
Have to.
They have to work.
Yep.
Okay? And I see the root of this is they're unwilling to get their fucking ego out of the way, learn how to sell, learn how to negotiate. Like, to me, every project, I mean, I'm never like, take it or leave it, here's my price. I think that's the worst fucking sales strategy ever. And yet I see it with all these guys that have been in the industry for 20 and 30 years.
Yeah.
And the one thing in common with all of them is they're all old in the trades for years and broke.
Yeah. They're jaded. They're making
Yeah.
up stories about what the client is, why the client isn't willing to spend money with them. And so they make up this story, and it's a false narrative because most people are nice.
Right.
The reality is most people that we work for are actually good people. And we go put a bid out there, and they say, nope, we're going to go with somebody else. And they're like, yeah, you know, somebody low bid me or whatever. And they just tell that story, and that's the story. I can almost guarantee 90% of the time, there is another reason you didn't get that job.
Yeah. Well, money is like 6th or 7th on importance to
Yep.
the average consumer across all things.
But we tell
we all
ourselves-
think it's the number one
Yeah.
thing. Dude, you brought that up. I remember many years ago, I lost this bid. I charged, I don't know, 15 grand for something. I lost it to somebody else. And I just knew they undercut me and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And so like a month later, it was still bothering me. So I called the client because it was driving me nuts. Because I'm like, hey, I know you hired another company, and I don't know how anybody could do it cheaper.
Yep.
And I made all these assumptions, and they're like, oh, they were actually $23,000. They paid 7 grand, 8 grand more for this other company. And now looking back through the lens that I have now and the experience of worldview, back to the top of this thing, I hadn't earned the right.
Yep.
I hadn't built enough value, and they didn't trust me.
Yeah.
Even though I would have done a great job, it was the experience and all those other things that we talk about.
Yeah.
That I didn't communicate well, I didn't show up right.
Yeah.
And that was a tough lesson. Like, not everyone, when you lose a job, it's not always because of a low bid.
But if we have the lens of everybody is cheap and this is my price and they're going to take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at my dad. My dad's a general contractor. He's been building houses. He's retired now, but he did it for 40-some years. And my mom always said, yeah, Dad's the expensive one in town. Mm-hmm. And as I started to be in town doing work as well, working for some of the same clients that my father worked for, I come to find out my dad was not the expensive guy.
Yeah.
But he was so prideful, not in a bad way. He loved what he did. He was a true craftsman. He delivered an exceptional product.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But when I started to realize is he left so much meat on the bones.
Yeah.
All the years, and I have 7 siblings, and we lived well. You know, it's not a silver spoon type situation, but we lived well.
Right.
But my dad doesn't have a retirement now.
Yeah.
And when I see that as an example, and I see that he thought that he was charging enough, he thought that he was doing great work, but he thought that the great work was charged appropriately and that the clients were getting what they deserved. And I look at now that he doesn't have a retirement, he doesn't have a fallback plan, and how can that be? If he was always charging enough, how can that be? Regardless of the many kids.
Right.
All of them went through college, but he didn't pay for it. It was all scholarships because they're all brilliant. You know, they all have PhDs and masters in engineering. Like, they're awesome people, but he didn't pay for that.
Yeah.
He was an amazing father, is an amazing father. And as I start to kind of peel back that onion of what exactly, why did he think that they were charging enough, or why did they think that they were the creme de la creme, I started to understand that they were believing a false narrative, that they had heard from a few people that they were expensive,
Right.
and they bought into that we're expensive mentality. But in reality, I know now that there was an entire echelon above them. They were just fishing in the wrong pool.
That's why it's so important to do what most of us as business owners don't like to do is put our eyes on the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we want to go build the thing. We want to paint the thing. We want to do the shit that we like to do like that. And I think I know I used to avoid the numbers because I didn't want to know the truth.
Yeah.
But when you really start, when you really start looking at, like I did a minute ago, you take the 15 grand a month divided by the number of days, that's what you got to bring in on average. And the numbers don't lie. The numbers are unemotional. They tell us the truth.
Yeah.
And there's tons and tons of people I know in my life that are just like your dad.
Yeah.
Great guys,
Fantastic
great
people.
craftsmen. And listen, if you want to bid something cheap because you love doing the thing and you want to go work or whatever, like, just bid it cheap on purpose.
Yeah.
Not because you're ignorant to your numbers.
You didn't know how much your overhead.
Right.
Your overhead never sleeps.
And you want to go out and do a job for fucking free? That's great. I've actually done that. I've gone and served people for free.
Yep.
Or there's times where I'm like, I look at a day and I'm like, you know what? It's going to cost me $1,200 to send the guys for the day. I'll charge 15 because I just need to keep the momentum going with my team, and I'm good making $300 today. Not a big deal, right? But it's on purpose because I know my numbers.
Yeah.
And I totally encourage guys, you got to know your numbers. And when you know your numbers, you start job costing, you understand what it costs you to produce the job, what to stay in business. That whole sales thing of take it or leave it, like, I understand where they're coming from.
Right. They're jaded.
But they're jaded, and how about a little foreplay in the sales process, right? How about a little massaging and about, oh, that's way expensive. I had a lady the other day. It was this small stain job we were doing, and it was $2,000 for $2,000 for the labor. She already has the material, and she's like, hey, can you or the material was going to be extra, and she says, can you throw in the material for the $2,000, and just make it happen. And I just said to her, we'll call her Mary. I said, Mary, I wish I could do that. And that was it. I didn't defend.
Yeah.
Inflation and all that other shit, right? I just said, I wish I could do that.
You know what they say about excuses, right?
What's that?
Give me one, I'll believe you.
Yeah.
You give me two. You give me three. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. There you go.
We did a thing last year. I've got the pond maintenance side of our business, and I looked at the numbers and I looked at what the overhead was, and it's just below 300, but I'm gonna use 300 for round numbers. It's 300 grand. It was one main guy, and then he had a full-time guy helping him, and then a couple part-time people coming in. And I looked at all the numbers because it's not our main business. It's kind of like an offshoot. I have somebody who's running it. I looked at all the numbers and I was like, man, we only made like 20 grand of net profit off of this, and I'm not happy with that.
Off the 300?
Off the 300.
Okay.
I'm not happy with that. That's not a good number for how much effort and how much risk this exposes the business to have this. Now it's great for our clients to support them. And so I started running through all these scenarios. Do I extricate it from the business and set this guy up with his own LLC? Do I just drop it all together? You know,
Right.
my mind is full of all these things. And so I sat down with the guy who I have, my pond maintenance manager, and I said, hey, let's go through the numbers. And this was as simple as we printed out the Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I knew, and I had it like not a true P&L. This was as simple as we knew how much we cost in labor, how much we spent on materials, and how much we had assumed it had cost for overhead, you know, for the insurance and stuff like that. I just assumed, because it's all baked in the business. It's hard to break out.
Yeah.
But I just had those three numbers. And then I said, let's print out all the clients' names and let's go through them. And I'm going to put a 15% increase on every job that we had this year, and you're going to say yes or no. We would keep those clients as a reoccurring maintenance going into the next year. And I just want you to say yes or no, and if you say yes, I'll put a check next to it. If you say no, I'm going to strike it out.
Okay.
So we went through this 15%, and we raised prices 15%, and we only lost a couple clients. It's like, that's not good enough. So, right? So, right, we're boiling it down.
I get it.
And he's like, but I really like looking for it's fine. These are just names right now. Let's work through this. So we went up to 25%. We raised our prices 25% on pond maintenance, which is taking like a $750 thing to $1,000, right? You know, it's a pretty big jump. So we raised the prices 25%. We went through. At the end of that whole equation, we lost, I think it was 16%. And said, okay, let's roll with it.
Yeah.
We lost 13%.
So you jacked your prices 25%, lost 13%. Throwing this out there, were the 13% the right 13% to leave?
Absolutely.
That's usually how it works, you know?
A couple stuck. And
Yeah, you're like, damn it.
But just going through that exercise, and this goes back all the way to the beginning and the top of this podcast, which is, are we capable of being the 50,000 contractor for people? And it is not something that we just arrive on the scene and we are the $50,000 contractor. We do exercises like the one I just talked about, and that's how we inch our way up the ladder. And that's how we start to get our service more dialed in. We get our trucks cleaner. I now have more profit in that business. He's going to do the same amount, and it's just him and a part-time helper now, because we took out all the extra help that he needed. And so now he's running a tighter schedule. Like the 13% was just the right amount where he didn't need an additional helper because he was doing less paperwork now. And so when we do that now, like he's going to get a new truck this next year because there's a lot more profit in this organization now, in his sub-organization now. There's things for him to be able to send more gifts to his clients and to build his rapport. And guess what? We're going to raise our prices again this year. And we're going to keep doing it until it's almost where he's just sitting on his hands. Right? As long as his revenue stays, our goal is to keep the revenue right around the same amount and then build our experience. And so that's the process, you know, the force and the pressure that creates that diamond is not something that just happens overnight.
Yeah, you gotta stick with it. Consistency over time.
Consistency over time.
You know, which it's kind of a what's that called? Consistency over time. Isn't that saying the same thing? What do they call that?
What?
Anyway, I don't know.
Time over consistency?
No, it's yeah, whatever. I'm sure somebody will correct me.
Yeah.
So,
we love comments.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So before we get out of here, closing thoughts. I'll let you close us out, and so he's going to get the last word. So listen, give us a rating, give us a review, share the show. Appreciate you being part of the fight. The last word is Micah's, and if you don't know. If you haven't checked him out, go to Easton right?
Yeah, it's EastonOutdoors.com.
EastonOutdoors.com.
Yeah.
Isn't there a hyphen in there?
There is a hyphen in the core site, but I bought the Easton Outdoors.
Okay,
now,
EastonOutdoors.com. Check out Micah and what he's doing. He's building an amazing experience for his clients. His sales process is by the way, he's the only sales guy in their company. He sells over $5 million by himself, and it's because
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, it's difficult, but and he's hiring salespeople. But anyway, the point here, guys, is he's so fucking efficient with this stuff. You're so dialed in your systems and processes why you're able to do $5 million on your own.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I have support.
Yeah,
but it's still
you've
just
got a
me.
great team. But
Yeah.
anyway, so last word. What do you want?
Yeah, so I keep a list of just thoughts.
Yeah.
So I go and I intentionally find time just to reflect, because I found, the shower dump, right?
Yep.
Where you're in, not the shower dump, that sounded so wrong.
Shitting in the shower. Yeah. The
But
shower brain dump.
The shower brain dump.
There you
Thank
go.
So when you're in
All
the
your
shower,
ideas
and then all
come.
these thoughts
Yeah.
start coming, and so I'll intentionally go and I'll just try and find time where there's nothing else going on, where I can just bring these thoughts out.
Yeah.
And one of these thoughts came from a book, and I've been thinking a lot about it, and I've been kind of just marinating on it, is there was no leisure time before the division of labor. There was no leisure time before the division of labor. There was no leisure,
Yep.
enjoyment, before the division of labor. And I think this is an important concept that we gloss over in our businesses frequently, and I've been marinating on it a lot. When we tool up and when we get ready and when we build ourselves out to accomplish one thing really, really well, example would be, I was the landscape handyman, right?
Yeah.
This is what I called myself.
The
It's
landscape
the
handyman.
landscape handyman, because if you wanted a tree removed,
I'm your guy.
if you wanted your grass cut,
I'm your guy.
if you wanted pansies planted in the fall,
You're definitely the guy.
if you wanted a design done, whatever you wanted done in your yard, I would do. But guess what?
Guess what?
But guess what?
Oh, yeah.
He's giving me so much crap about saying guess what. I'm sorry.
What?
Now you just ruined it. I was on a roll. So you have to go back and take things off of the truck and put things back on the truck. And you have to, if you want to go cut grass, you have to go get the grass cutting trailer, and you have to put the lawnmower, and you have to put the blower and the weed eater. If you're going to go plant pansies, you got to get everything out of the trailer and have a flat space, and you got to make sure you have a tarp on the truck. If you're going to go cut down a tree, you got to make sure you got your dump trailer with your chainsaw and your blades are sharpened. And when you're trying to do, or when I was trying to do all of these things, it was so inefficient.
Right.
That same concept applies to everything in our lives. And as society has evolved, this concept is not just for contractors, but as society has evolved, like what was the Renaissance age? What was that all about? That was essentially the innovations of the agriculture community getting so far along that then people were not having to work in order to put food in their mouth. That's what the Renaissance age was. And we got all this art, we got all these sculptures, all these things coming out because of the invention of the windmill, because of the invention of the grindstone. They made it so that people didn't have to sit there and manually make, flour. All these things produced excess time. They produced leisure. And then leisure created the arts.
Yeah.
And we're about to break through into another part of our society with AI and all the stuff. And there's about to be a bunch of people who don't need to work. Right? It's a wildly foreign concept, not needing to work.
Right.
But if we really start to understand the division of labor and how impactful that is, we can look at our lives and we can find ways that we can start parsing out things, and we can get super refined on it, and we can say, I don't want to do this. This is not something that I should be doing. I'm going to put it on somebody else's plate. They're going to handle it for me so that I can be hyper focused and specific on this one thing. And that's how I sell so much, is because I've taken all this stuff off of my plate and I'm just focused on the one thing.
I love it.
So that's not the last thought, but this is
Okay.
This is
Here
the
it
last
comes.
thought. Procrastination is wisdom. You heard this saying?
Yes.
Procrastination is wisdom.
Explain it.
I love this saying so much. If there's something that you do not want to do, it probably means that you shouldn't be doing it because you're not getting the joy and the satisfaction of completing that task. And that should be somebody else's job.
Yeah. So if you find yourself procrastinating, you're really stacking your wisdom and realizing I
Yep.
got to offload this.
And this ties into my smaller than $1 million businesses. I believe that the owner should be in the field and that they should have a kick-ass office manager, and they'll put 250 grand in their pocket.
Yeah. And like I said, it comes back to what kind of life do you want? You reverse engineer it. But what I agree with is I think a lot of people, and I was one of them many years ago, we get out of the field too soon.
Yeah, absolutely we do.
Or
we hire too quickly.
Right.
One or the other.
Yeah, because the entrepreneurship world is like,
you have to.
You got to scale. You got to get out of the
build it.
field. You're a fucking loser if you're still in the field, and all this
right.
other bullshit. And that's not true. I mean,
And society makes tradesmen look like they're losers.
Yeah. Well, look at Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, who's sold many companies for millions of dollars.
Yep.
His last one was a pond company.
Yep.
And Steve, I met Steve in 2013 or 14. Started working with their company and helping them out with some marketing and stuff like that. He sold it in 2020. He started it in 2001, by the way. Okay, so what's that? 19 years,
Yeah.
right? He worked in the field and was making a shit ton of money.
He told me he's not made less than 400 since something like
Yeah,
80 something.
Well, like he started the business, and I don't have time to go into the whole thing here today, but basically, long story short, is he worked in the field until 5 years before he sold it.
Yeah.
Okay. His previous business was a swimming pool maintenance company that did millions and millions a year. He ran the field operations. His partner ran the sales and the marketing. He still had the fucking knee pads on when they handed him a multi-million-dollar check when they sold the business.
Yeah.
So the point here is, guys, and this goes back to Steve's rule: don't fuck with the money, right? So if you're not making enough money as a contractor and you're not in the field right now,
Yeah.
you might want to consider putting the tools back on, because you're paying that money out to somebody.
But
It might
we're
as
the
well
best.
be you.
Right?
Right?
We're the best at what we do.
Right.
Right. We're the best person to paint the room.
Well, I'm not, but
But you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. We're the best person to lay the paver. Because we've been doing it for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that we need to stay in there that long, but I am saying that until a lot of the other stuff that we're procrastinating on is handled, we
Yep.
should stay in that position.
I agree. Well, dude, it's been good.
Yeah.
We got to get you to the airport, and appreciate you coming out, hanging out here, guys.
Yeah.
Check out Micah Miller, EastonOutdoors.com.
Yeah.
He's
Follow
also
us on
one of our
Facebook.
fight coaches. He's one of our facilitators in our War Room program.
Yeah.
And
I'm excited about that,
yeah,
man.
it's badass, man.
That
So
program's going somewhere.
appreciate y'all. Share the show. Give us a rating and a review, for God's sake. And
And some comments.
and some comments. Give us some shit, man. We love
That's
it.
right.
All right. You guys rock. We got to roll. We're out.